we're moving dangerously close toward like assassination territory. Do you worry about this at all? Like, do you worry about like becoming an enemy of the state?
Does that come up from time to time in my mind? Yes.
In this video, we're going to review the most recent Part of the Problem podcast between Dave Smith and the gift that just keeps on giving, Vivek Ramaswamy. And this one has an incredible ending, so make sure you guys stick around for that. And for those of you who don't know, Dave Smith is a stand-up comedian and a staunch libertarian. And he's actually one of my favorite public voices. So I'm going to link the full video and his channel below, so make sure you go check that out. And with that, let's get into the clips.
You know, I think about how, you know, if you remember like, maybe like the early 2000s. Remember how popular the new atheist movement was? It was like Christopher Hitchens and Sam Harris and a lot of these guys. Yeah. And I was, at the time, I was like a pretty militant atheist, which I'm not at all anymore. And then you kind of saw how like Jordan Peterson like became this huge phenomenon. Yeah. And it's almost like, I think a lot of us were in a place, and certainly this was kind of my evolution, where there were a lot of people like around that time who were like, well, listen, this is a more sound, logical argument. Yeah. I mean, the truth is you can't really prove the existence of a God, and therefore if we're not required to prove a negative, and therefore the
all that. Yep.
And then there was almost something like, it's almost like we lived with the results of an atheistic society for a while. And then a lot of people were like, yeah, you know what? I actually think I am craving meaning. Yeah. I'm craving some kind of bigger purpose. And I've seen, kind of to your point, that almost the real flaw in atheism is that it doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. Because as soon as you become an atheist, it's almost like something rushes in to fill a new religion. To fill that void.
You could be an atheist. You don't believe in God. You're going to believe in something. Yeah. Right. And so I mean, that's one of the oldest expressions. You have a hole the size of God in your heart. Yeah. And God does not fill it. Something else will instead. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was actually Pascal, who's a scientist and mathematician, right, who actually first said it, and in his own life had gone through his own phase of secular religion. But I do think that that's what's happened. And I think there's a further danger in that, where some of the most dangerous religions are the ones where you fail to acknowledge that it's actually a religion when you're practicing it. That's what's going on with the climate religion in this country. It pains me to watch.
Oh, it's absolutely
It is absolutely a substitute for true religion. But it is more dangerous because you convince yourself that you're actually engaging in logic and reason and capital S science when it's really just scientism.
I believe in God since having kids, that really changed it.
It's interesting. Yeah. It was a similar time frame. You know, I came back to it. I went through my own phase. I grew up in a religious household, left that for most of my 20s, came back probably shortly before we had kids, actually. In some ways, that may have been what led me to actually having kids. But anyway, the whole part of that journey, what that means is, I was still, let's just take my example. I was a drug developer, right? I oversaw the development of medicines. 5 of them are FDA approved. One of them is a life-saving therapy in kids, which 100% of kids die by the age of 3 with this genetic disease they're born with. Now, one of the therapies that we worked on is one that allows a majority of those kids to live lives of normal duration that's FDA approved. So be it. When we're engaging in different facets and spheres of our lives, we know we can wear different hats, right? It's not that I hope and pray for a miracle cure. You analyze data, you make probabilistic bets, some work, some fail, you're rational about what that's going to be. And you wear that hat because you're not practicing religion when you're doing that. You're practicing science. Right. Or you're practicing investment calculus or business practice, okay? And that's different when you go to the temple or you go to the church and you pray. It's a different side of how you access truth. It's not like you're reasoning your way into that. If you're listening to, or at least many people sit in the pews, listen to the pastor, it's not like your logical brain is computing, even though you have that side of yourself. The problem with the secular religions is that they combine these things into one exercise where you convince yourself that you're actually doing the thing that we're talking about making a logical business decision or a scientific calculation, when in fact the thing you're doing is you're just sitting in the pews and engaging in a feeling that the pastor is giving you, and the pastor might be named Al Gore or whoever it is, Greta Thunberg or whoever it is. And I think that it's just important. There's nothing wrong with either mode of accessing truth. But you got to know which one you're actually practicing, or you lose track of what the heck you're doing. And that's what's going on in the United States of America with respect to this climate cult. And the problem with that is not just that you're confused. You make decisions that actually harm human beings in ways you never otherwise would have accepted.
Yeah.
That was COVID policy. It's now climate policy. And I think that it's at risk of repeating itself unless we actually have the courage, not just through government, preferably not through government as much as possible, to fill that void of purpose and meaning with something that's real and lasting and true and tied to our nature, our innate nature as human beings.
So here's why I find that so interesting. When I look around our culture at the moment, I'm seeing a new breath of life being breathed into the discussion about God. And it actually gives me some hope considering how far we've strayed. And on a personal note, you guys will know if you've been watching the channel and following it, that it's something that I've been wrestling with in my own personal life. And it's something that I've been pretty open about. And I've even had my brother Brandon McGuire from the Daily Dose of Wisdom YouTube channel on the show. And I think what it comes down to is that I, like so many others, am looking for an antidote to what is happening in our culture. People are looking for answers to the degeneracy. People are looking for answers to the corrupt power structures that are clearly leading our world in the wrong direction. And amongst all of the demoralization that we face, people are looking for what it is that's going to strengthen and sturdy their own hearts and allow them to continue to pursue the truth and speak the truth amongst a world of lies. And in that, I know a lot of people have their own way of going about this, but like Dave and like Vivek, I've found myself with an extreme magnetism towards faith and towards religion and learning about it and understanding it, and actually a real hunger for the knowledge. And the more I learn about it and the deeper I allow myself to go into it, the more you sort of start to realize that the path has been laid out for us. The path to lead a good and righteous life and the path to win the war. And it's pretty mind-blowing. So I'd actually love to hear your thoughts about this in the comments. Have your beliefs changed over the years? I mean, have you had a conversion, or do you think atheism answers all those questions for you? Or is there something else that's filled your cup? I'm fascinated to hear your thoughts, guys. So leave a comment after the video. And in the next section, we're going to listen to Dave and Vivek look behind the curtain of politics a little bit.
But I will have people who will walk into that event thinking that they're in support of continuing aid to Ukraine, that will walk out of that event saying, no, ending this war with a peace deal and getting Russia out of China's hands is absolutely the right way to go. And so I think this is one of those rare moments where we get to do something that we don't do in our politics anymore. We actually persuade people on the merits of an issue. And the beauty of this issue is, at least as it relates to Ukraine, it's not so old yet that people have become entrenched in believing that it has to be either this way or the other way. I think there's a lot of people in the Republican primary base, at least, that are curious, open, but still think that, isn't the right thing to support the guy who's like not the evil dictator man, but the other guy who's we're taught to believe the good guys, because that's what we do in the United States, peace through strength, all that stuff, who I think are really open to being convinced. And so that's a big part of why I'm doubling down my voice on this issue. Is I think it can actually make a change in what the GOP ends up becoming.
Guys, if you're enjoying this video and if you're getting value from this, then don't hesitate to take a second to just quickly like that video. It helps me out enormously. And also, if you want to subscribe to the channel, then you are welcome to do so. Back to the clips.
Out of the two major parties, I mean, you, Trump, and RFK are like kind of the only people who are good on Ukraine. But I will say, watching the debate, watching the, say, like where Mike Pence is or where Nikki Haley is on Ukraine, I listen to that and I am very convinced. I go, there's no chance that you can win the nomination. Yeah, I don't believe it. In 2004, sure, this was the key to winning in the Republican primary. Not anymore. Not after this. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. I think DeSantis, who I just think has been a complete flop as a presidential candidate, even though I think he did some very good things as governor in Florida.
I agree with that.
He is trying to walk this line where he goes, he kind of knows he can't say what Mike Pence is saying because he knows that's a loser, but he also, I think, doesn't want to alienate his donors. It leaves for people like me, I have no idea where he truly stands on the issue, where his heart is, and I think this is kind of a cowardice on his part.
So I'm going to be a little bit more charitable here because I think I'm closer to it and understand what's going on. It's not even his fault. It's the fault of a broken system, right? I mean, you have a campaign effectively being run by a super PAC. I mean, this whole thing's a charade, right? The distinction between super PAC and campaign.
Right,
it's a joke. It's a farce. And we're playing this game where they're literally serving up binders of stuff to say, this is what you should say. Like there was, I don't know if you saw this before the first debate. There was like a 400-page memo, 17 pages of which are dedicated to one-liners to be directed against me.
I saw.
Which is remarkable. And yet it's just the way the machine works. And I feel badly, actually, for the people who are the puppets who then get propped up. I mean, these are people who, some of whom might not even run for president. They're doing a good job in the role they're in. They don't, whoever they are, I'm not talking about anybody specific here, but I think this happens a lot. Don't enjoy people, are doing a good job being an executor. When you're a president, you need to actually have vision. But the donor class has decided, no. It can't be Trump, and there must be an anointed one. And we're going to pour like literally hundreds of millions of dollars into, we can't do that to the campaign, so we're going to create this farce saying there's an independent super PAC that then props that up, runs the whole thing, creates the one-liners you're supposed to say, but that comes with strings attached because many of those donors are addicted to sort of the American hegemony, self-esteem that they derive from what America is in the global stage, to say that that can't be your position on Ukraine, that tie your hands on what you can say about Ukraine, what you can say about the falsehoods of the climate change agenda,
right?
What you can say about even pardoning Donald Trump or Julian Assange or anyone else. I mean, I've got a day one list of pardons. That costs me donors. My Ukraine position costs me major donors. We're here in New York City. I'm very, from my prior life, well connected in this city in these circles. The number of people I lose because of my willingness to say that I would pardon Donald Trump for politicized persecution through prosecution, it comes at a real sacrifice.
Isn't it interesting to have a candidate like Vivek and somebody who's able to sort of poke his head behind the veil of the political establishment and then report back to us and say, hey guys, I went behind the veil. This is what I found, and this is what it looks like back there. And he's not trying to shit on DeSantis, and he's going about it in a pretty classy way while still kind of calling him a puppet, which at this stage, we're really not sure if that's the case or not. And it's a notion that if DeSantis wants to dispel, then he should do what Vivek is doing and come out and speak about it openly and publicly. And that's the reason why I don't really speak about DeSantis much on this channel. It's because there's nothing to really speak about. He just isn't putting himself out there. Policy-wise, he may be the greatest president the world has ever known. But in 2023, you need to be able to inspire people. You need people to be able to connect with you and feel like they know you. You need to have that burning desire where people need to hear what you have to say and they look forward to it and they tune in. And he doesn't really have that because I just don't feel like he has the same charisma. He appears to be playing the old politics game and maybe just trying to spend his way to the top through his super PAC. And it appears to me like it's not working. And now on to the next section where Vivek covers a little bit of the skepticism surrounding him. And even though I've covered this already on the channel, this is very necessary.
There's one of the things that I think a lot of people kind of dissident, not just libertarians, but just kind of dissidents in general. One of the things we have a lot of trouble with is even when people say all of the right things, then there's always the question of like, can I trust this guy?
Fair enough.
And I've seen, I saw the interview you did with Anomaly, where there's been some of these kind of things online about, look, you are a guy to a lot of us who it's kind of like came out of nowhere. All of a sudden, this guy made hundreds of millions of dollars in some industry that is known as being a pretty corrupt industry. All of a sudden, he's here. Yeah. He's saying all of the right things. And we're like, so what's going on here? And I've seen a lot of things come out about like your company, and they're accusing you of like some type of pump and dump type scheme, where your stock plummeted, but you made tons of money.
So some of this is downright false.
There were failed drugs that people did. So like what because listen,
can we just walk through some of that?
Sure,
yeah.
Absolutely.
So the first thing I would say is people should be skeptical of anybody. Yeah, not new, anything. Be skeptical. I think that's healthy, but be skeptical 360 degrees. Right? Because the manipulation is 360 degrees. It may be happening through what's served up to you on your own social media algorithms by the people who you think you trust, but actually have their own agenda for pushing what they do. So as long as the skepticism goes 360 degrees, I think it's a good thing. So look, let's say how I succeeded. First, people say, well, is he a pharma industry shill? Look at how the people in the pharma industry, like big pharma execs, feel about me. That answers your question. Comparing my company or my rise as an entrepreneur to big pharma or being part of big pharma is like the equivalent of calling Rumble part of big tech.
Okay.
Okay, because just because you're doing the same things and offering a video sharing platform doesn't mean you're big tech. You're there for a reason.
Right.
And I say this as somebody who invested in Rumble back when it was a private company, precisely because I wanted to back it to challenge big tech. And we did the same thing with respect to big pharma, which often coordinates softly to leave certain therapeutic areas undeveloped. Now, there's the separate point is, oh, no, was this guy actually successful at being a biotech entrepreneur? The answer is yes. I mean, I don't like to brag, but let's just call the facts are what they are. In 7 years, I oversaw the development of medicines, 5 of which are FDA approved today. Most people who ever start a biotech startup never get to one product that makes it past that line. We got 5. Now, the whole strategy is develop drugs in areas that pharma abandons. One of those was a failed drug for Alzheimer's disease. Whoop-de-doo. 99.7% of drugs ever tested for Alzheimer's disease failed. About thousands of drugs. Mine was one of them. What's unique about me is 5 of the medicines that I oversaw the development of, one of them is life-saving in kids, one of them is a drug for prostate cancer. That's what created the value that allowed me to make money. That's a $10 billion public company today. That's the predominant source of my wealth. Now, then there comes the falsehood. They say that, oh, well, Vivek company had a subsidiary, it was, Axovant, that had this drug for Alzheimer's disease, and that he sold shares and made money. No. Like, you could literally factually track this stuff. Just not a dime. I could have, actually, but I didn't. In fact, many people may call that, I would say, honorable to not have done that because you actually are invested in the thing that you're actually doing. And so the only thing I would say to people is be skeptical of what you're fed. Be skeptical of what you hear from me. Be skeptical of what you hear from Dave. Be skeptical of what you hear from everybody, but get to truth. The litmus test I'd give you, though, is think about what somebody has given up for the decisions they make.
Sure.
Right. So I stepped down from my job as a biotech CEO precisely because I refused to bend the knee and make a corporate statement or contribution in favor of Black Lives Matter. And then specifically took a stand that companies should not be engaging in political and politicized, one-sided tilting of scales, which you're seeing in most of corporate America. And I wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal that the big tech companies should not listen or should not be bound by government actors who pressure them to censor content. I wrote that in the wake of January 6th. 3 advisors to my company resign. I'm sitting in a very good position as CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. Had to face a choice. I could have done what everybody else did and chose instead to step down so I could speak my mind freely. That comes at some sacrifice. In this campaign, it is obvious that most of the things that I am saying are not the things that allow me to raise the maximal donor money that I could, especially with a base of, connectivity and whatever in elite among wealthy people or whatever, many of whom are refusing to associate with or give to my campaign. It comes at great cost. We've put in immense amounts of our family's money instead to do that. And so all I would ask is when people are getting to truth, get to truth. But think about it. Be a thinking person. Don't just consume what you're fed. And I'm confident that, that's what this process is about. People will understand who I am and what I stand for.
I feel like these issues are resolved for me. I'm interested to know what you guys think about this because I had my own skepticism, but the fact that Vivek has been on the front foot and he hasn't taken a backward step and he's addressed these issues head on makes me extremely confident that he's telling the truth. He's actually meeting people where they're at and he's speaking to them eye to eye. And that sort of honesty and integrity is really not something you see very often with politicians. You're way more likely to see their press secretary answer the question and for the press secretary to dance around it and never really answer it. Nothing ever gets resolved.
We've seen an economy that's now growing.
Vivek, though, is taking it on his own shoulders, and you love to see it. It's honestly a breath of fresh air, and it speaks to the new level of accountability that people in power have. And I hope that only intensifies. And this is because people are able to be unplugged from the matrix. People are able to seek new and different forms of information, and this is one of the great things that the internet has provided. And now for the most interesting and shocking and also touching part, where Dave asks Vivek a question that you can hardly believe we have to ask politicians in this day and age.
Yeah, you see the way they're coming after Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I think Tucker Carlson was on Adam Carolla's show, it was recently, and he said, which I think something that we've all kind of thought, at least at one point, whether we agree with it or not, but he said, look at where this thing is going, like chart it out. I mean, they tried just slandering him. They tried impeaching him. Like that didn't work. They tried impeaching him again. That didn't work. They've now indicted him. His poll numbers are going up. That didn't work. And he was like, we're moving dangerously close toward like assassination territory. But you're seeing, even regardless of that, just how much they're coming after the guy and trying to ruin him. You've got you, kind of RFK, and Donald Trump are the three candidates out there who are making waves, who are really running in opposition to three-letter agencies, and three-letter agencies are not known for their kindness. Do you worry about this at all? Like, do you worry about like becoming an enemy of the state in the way it does seem like they're working on taking Donald Trump out? And then if he's out of the race, you're now kind of the America First Trumpist candidate in the Republican Party. Or do you like, as a person with a family and kids, do you get worried about like being in the crosshairs of this, you know, the most powerful government in human history?
It doesn't make me, I'm not at my best when I'm in fear mode.
Right.
And so am I a human being? And does that come up from time to time in my mind? Yes. But that's not what's going to allow me to actually unleash the true potential of this country and unleash my own potential as a leader. Our family, we made a serious decision. I mean, it is a sacrifice to this. We're living a great life, right? You got two young kids, live the full American dream. You know, Air Force One won't be that much of an upgrade for me from our life that we've lived for the last 3 years. We're happy with that. And so this comes at some sacrifice. And I think that if you're living in constant fear, you're never going to get the thing done that you wanted to get done in the first place. And so I would say we're guided by our purpose, understanding as thinking people that there are risks.
Right.
But you know what? Every plan you make in life is somewhat stupid too. Yeah, at least it's been that way for me.
Sure.
Like all your plans are kind of dumb. You think I mean, there have been stages in my life, maybe all of us have done this, where, you know, even plotting out my career, we're going to do this and then it's going to be the next thing that come up. But if that doesn't happen, then we're going to do this. And it's just like, it never went according to plan anyway.
Right.
And so and this is actually part of where my faith comes back as well. I do believe that it is not really in some true sense of the universe. It's not being done by us. It is being done through us. I believe God put us here for a purpose, and we're here to do our part and realize that true purpose. And so for me, that's actually liberating. That's a source of my freedom when I fall into sometimes the mental trap and model of thinking it's being done by me. I'm the agent. I am, and I went through my 20s of, you know, thinking I'm the Howard Rourke. It's actually, for me at least, each person might be different, it's confining. Whereas when you remind yourself, at least for me, I think of it as a reminder that, hey, I'm an agent, I'm an instrument. I'm put here to achieve a unique purpose. Just because I'm running for the presidency, that's not higher or lower than any other important job that needs to be done for the purposes that we're each here put on earth to pursue. But that's the one that I believe I've been given the skill set and the blessing to be able to make an impact this way. Great. That's what I'm going to do. Then I'm cool.
Right.
And so I think that, you know, are there times where you get all wrapped up in your head? Yeah, that's natural. But that's not most of the time for me. And I think I'm at my best when we're guided by our purpose.
Powerful stuff. I mean, really, really powerful stuff, and really resonated with me actually, guys. And like I said before, guys, really interested to hear your thoughts about this in relation to the question that I asked earlier in the show. What's your journey been, and where is your head at with all that is going on? So guys, hit those links in the bio to find me on social media, and also join the Locals community. We have some big plans coming up for that, and I do hope to see you all there. Subscribe to the channel by clicking here, and if you want to watch another video, click right here. Until next time, I'm Jake. This is Rattlesnake TV, keeping you armed and dangerous.